હા, પ્રશ્ન એટલે 14મા અધ્યાયમાં ગુણાતીતના વર્ણનમાં સ્વામીજી એવું કહ્યું કે જ્ઞાની પોતાની ઉપાધિને પ્રારબ્ધને એટલે કે ઈશ્વરને સમર્પિત કરી દે છે. તો એના ઉપરથી આગળ વિચારવાથી મનમાં વિચાર એ આવ્યો કે હા, I understand that. I'm going to speak in English. I think probably Swamiji would understand.
Better, yeah.
So the question came in the mind that I understand that this body is because of the prarabdha, which is Ishwar Srushti.
Right.
And that continues for Gnani even after the knowledge happens, because it is Ishwar Srushti. It continues.
Right.
So now the question is that what about this Sanchita Karma and Agami Karma? Are they not Ishwar Srushti?
No, they are Jiva Srushti. Even Prarabdha also was Jiva Srushti before it became Prarabdha. So Prarabdha is not Ishvara Srushti, but the body created from Prarabdha now has become Ishvara Srushti. So Prarabdha is for the body. And body is Ishvara Srushti, and so it will follow its Prarabdha. But Sanchita Karma is all done by the Jiva. Of that, the Prarabdha became responsible for this life, and it gave rise, among other things, it gave rise to the body. So true, Ishvara uses Prarabdha to create this body. So both Ishvara and Jiva, both of them have contribution in creation of the body. Ishvara is more like an architect who follows the instruction of the client. So here the actual configuration of body, how the body, it's all done by, is decided by karma, which is done by the jiva. And the one who, with the help of karma, on basis of karma, who creates the body is Ishvara.
So before the knowledge, even though I am Ishvara, before the knowledge, when I call myself Jiva, that's when I have gathered the Sanchita Karma. But once the knowledge happens, now I am in a true sense Ishvara. So that's why I don't have any more, because now it's a cumulative, whole thing is I am. The Purnatva is gained, so that's why I don't have my individual Sanchita Karma left.
And also the one who performed those karma is no more there.
That is, yes.
The Jivatma did that, he is not there.
Yes.
So Prarabdha karma applies to body. And since the wise person also has to carry on with the body, therefore you say that he is subject to Prarabdha karma. From his standpoint, no. But from standpoint of the general vyavahara, you may say.
Yes, so the kartutva is gone then, that's why.
Right.
So for Jiva Srushti, Swamiji, it is prarabdha. It's not a prarabdha. It is just because the doership is there. That's why the movement is taking place for Jiva.
Jiva Srushti is product of ignorance.
Right.
And what we do now then becomes prarabdha. Prarabdha is a result of the action performed by the jiva. So actions were performed by him, so he is accountable for experiencing the outcome.
Outcome of it. Even as a wise man.
Even as a wise person. So as I said, for us the wise man is experiencing, but from the standpoint of wise man, there is no experiencer, ideally.
There is no experience. Okay. Swamiji, second question was for Atma Vichar. So Atma Vichar, where the Atma Vichar takes place when you are following the path of Shravanam, then Mananam, and then Nidhityasam. And when the Atma Vichar is taking place, it is at the level of Buddhi, correct? And when it takes at the level of buddhi, then it is the attitude with which we interact with the world. That's when you apply that Atma Vichar too.
So, with the Atma Vichara, you arrive at what the attitude should be, and that is the attitude that you display during the Vyavahara.
Okay.
Atma Vichara enables you to determine what's the right conduct,
Right.
what are the right values, what are the right things to do, which are in keeping with
The harmony.
the knowledge.
Knowledge, okay.
So, that you don't do something that contradicts the knowledge or contradicts the reality. So, you do what you do is in keeping with the order, harmony. So, Atma Vichara as such does not come into play as far as the Vyavahara is concerned. But Atma Vichara in a way comes by enabling you to understand that your conduct also should be in keeping with what it is that you want to become. So your achara should be as best as possible in keeping with vichara, Achara and vichara. So achara or conduct, you try to perform as best as possible to the vichara, to the nature of Atma. So basically values are that kind of thing.
Right, values.
Because all values are based on the nature of Atma.
Atma, right. And Swamiji, when Swamiji writes in Sharanagati, one of the sentence Swamiji wrote was that આત્માના સ્વરૂપનું ચિંતન કરવાથી અહંકારનો ભ્રમ દૂર થાય છે. Sorry, I had to translate into Gujarati for Swamiji. But
so what it means is that when you contemplate upon the nature of Atma, Swarupam is nature of Atma.
Right.
Then you realize that the way you take yourself to be is wrong. See, ahankara means I take myself to be an individual, which sense is based on I identify with the body. And so that is why you realize that the way you take yourself to be, namely an individual, jiva, karta, bhokta, all of that is a Brahma, not a reality. Because what I right now take myself to be is based on a habitual identification with the body. So we don't have to make an effort or sankalpa or a will to identify, it happens. Therefore the idea of jiva that I am so and so happens.
Automatically.
Now when you do Atma Vichara, you realize that this is your nature is something quite contrary. So therefore you have to deliberately now implement the Vichara into Achara. The Achara right now is based on taking myself to be an individual, which is the individuality, the result of identification of the body. The Atma Vichara realizes that my true nature is Atma. And so you try to put that into practice in terms of right values, etc. So that requires you to progressively give the identification of the body. Even though you may not make a separate effort to de-identify with the body, but even when you want to be a truthful person, an honest person, what comes in the way of honesty is that ego, the individual, who is the product of identification of the body. Meaning that speaking truth or being honest is threatening to the individual. His individuality will go
Yes, okay. Yes.
if you want to speak truth. So that fellow resists. So you overcome the resistance if you have a conviction. The truthfulness is the value and it's valuable to you. Then, in spite of the resistance of that individual, he is afraid of his demise,
Yes.
So he resists. And so then you have to overcome the resistance. It doesn't happen in one one stop, but
Yeah.
progressively.
I think when I was reading initially Sharanagati, the Sharaniya Shabda really struck my mind. Majority of them, major time, you don't even understand that Ishvara is a Sharanya. The concept is not there. That really struck my chord, and I'm mentally chewing on it and digesting it slowly and slowly. That it's a big thing to understand and to put into practice. Sharanya Ishvara. And once you surrender to Ishvara, because he's our protector, no matter how you cut it, that concept, it took a while to digest and put into action.
You are in his lap.
Yeah, completely.
And his Chhatrachaya.
And it helps in the work tremendously, day in, day out.
Because particularly when you try to be truthful or honest,
Yeah.
there is a lot of resistance
There's a lot of resistance.
from inside and outside. So there you very often need Ishvara's grace and help, because
Constantly.
your own strength is not enough.
Every step, Swamiji, at the work, at outside, home, you need that constant attendance and support. The ego wants to ignore it and wants to resist that big time.
So, Swamiji, to that point, when you said the ahankara usually will resist when you are trying to do something right, and to that point, I was thinking, the difference between priya, apriya, and yogya, ayogya. There's a very fine line when we try to understand the likes, dislikes versus even the preferences, because sometimes your mind will say, well, this is not my raga, this is just a preference. And I was thinking more about it, to how to make a decision about it. And I was thinking, priya is more, obviously it comes from selfishness, individual standpoint. While even preferences or yogya, ayogya should have a universal basis, a value basis. It shouldn't matter. Is that a, like for not eating food that has onions, for example? I mean, that is not rag, dvesh, priya. That is a value-based decision.
So preference can be that you prefer orange instead of Malta or something like that. You prefer apple instead of pear. That's called preference, which doesn't involve raga dvesha.
Well, I can take it that a step further. Well, I prefer these people's company because I enjoy them more versus the other people.
That involves attachment. When something is accompanied with dvesha, then it's called raga. So you prefer orange doesn't mean that you hate apple or something like that. If you do, then there is attachment. Attachment is the other side of the coin, is aversion.
Yeah. So if there is dvesha, then there is raga present.
Right.
That is a good way to remember.
So Swamini, you have some question?
No, Swamiji, I just wanted to see you.
How simple.
Yeah. No question at all.
Yeah.
How is Swamiji? That's all. That's the only question.
Yeah, I'm quite okay. So there is Anne, Nikita. Yeah. So Nikita, do you have any question? We don't see her, but anyway. I don't know whether she hears or not.
Well, I can, extend that same question I asked you in Rishikesh, and that was about the knowledge of anything that is an object being non-separate from oneself. That kind of knowledge, that is cognitive or experiential. The experiential part I didn't quite get. Cognitive, of course, I'm very clear that yes, it is cognitive because that kind of cognitive knowledge I do have. But experiential is, I'm still
It
little.
becomes experiential when your perception of yourself really changes.
Okay.
Conceptually is one thing, really changes, then the non-separation is,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Swamiji, now we are all waiting to have Swamiji here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a few days left now.
Yes.
Few days.
Just a few days, that's true. Already April 11 today, yeah, 15 days.
Yes, so 2 weeks. Yes.
Somebody ask a question or else Swamiji will leave.
How will Swamiji leave?
Will Swamiji go back from here? That's the question.
Oh, why should that be a question?
Back from America to India.
See, I am accountable, understand? I don't make my decisions. I am Chithyano Chakar.
Wish we can all make life that easy, Swamiji. Meditation series. And in the beginning, Puja Swamiji says that, not in the beginning, almost in the middle, when he explains that how everything is Ishvara, then Swamiji would say that, okay, now make up your own prayer and make a prayer to Bhagavan. So usually Swamiji has taught, Puja Swamiji has showed us the serenity prayer, and then he said that make up your own prayer. So I have made up my own prayer, saying that every time I say that ભગવાન મને બધાને સમજવાની સમજ આપ જેથી હું જેવા છે તેવા સ્વીકારી શકું. That is my prayer. Now the thing is, I try to understand others. That is my wish, that I understand others so I can accept the person just the way they are. But then it doesn't happen to my own self that easily. And how do I have a value for values. How do I not try to be perfect all the time?
That is, how do I not make a demand that I should be perfect?
To be perfect.
That's
Yeah.
right.
How do I not do that?
Make a demand that I should be perfect. Yeah.
Because I have to accept myself also just the way I want to accept the world.
Yes, I have to be kind to myself. That doesn't mean that it is my goal to be perfect. But presently, I have not reached that goal. Well, as long as I'm trying, all I can do is to try. As far as the end result is concerned, you leave it to Ishvara. Ma phaleshu kadachana. So, everybody expects that perfection from their own self, in a way, without quite recognizing that.
Yes, it is easy to accept someone else's imperfections, but when it comes to the self, the,
There is certain ego also involved there, you know.
so it's like, I feel like that is where that quantum leap comes, that Swamiji explains that. How do I not hold on to it?
Not hold on to what?
To being perfect.
Well, you can
If I
remind
make a mistake, I don't like it. That why did I do that? I should have accepted the person. Why did I, it becomes an issue then to me.
it becomes an issue is all right. At the same time, it is better that I have an attitude of learning from what happens rather than getting stuck there. So I could not accept that person. Was it my habitual error? Is it because the person has something which is really unacceptable? So I have to grow to accept that part. It's not always easy to accept because we have our own boundaries. So as we relax those boundaries, so then when I'm not going to accept somebody, in a way, it also tells me what my boundaries are. That this much I can accept, not more than that. Then I can ask myself next, is it possible for me to stretch those boundaries slowly? All of us have boundaries because we are grown that way. In Vyavahar also, you have to make your decision about people and decide your strategy. So, we are accustomed to judging ourselves and judging others and accordingly interacting. So to overcome that habit is going to take some time, quite some time. And accommodating others is a step that I can take which takes its own time. Because by now I become quite insistent on how things should be. And how I should be, therefore how others should be. And so those lines have to be relaxed slowly and slowly. Oh, that also is okay. That also can be. That also. So what Puja Swami used to say in discussion of Kshama, that you can be surprised at something, but not at pain. Oh, this also can be. This also can be. It also can be. But not rejecting. So you have to grow that way, you know.
That is true.
The step before deciding some liking or disliking something is branding it, as Swamiji said, right? Like you make a judgment about something, and then you have a reaction whether I like it or not. So even when there's Chit Shuddhi, the branding it still happens for you to decide whether for preferential treatment, whether this is yogya or ayogya. So the judgment, the mind still carries out the function of judging. Is that
But
correct?
yoga is from our standpoint. Yoga is based on my values, not on somebody else.
So what I'm trying to understand is the mind, even if you have antakaran shuddhi, the mind's function, the swabhava, is to judge every time it comes across an object. That will happen regardless.
Now what depends on what you mean by judge. By judge means you to understand what it is. But then when the raga dveshas are there, the next is likable, dislikable. Antagana Shuddhi, that will not happen. It will be less and less.
So what happens?
Then it's
When-
okay. You give them the freedom to be what they are, Give them the freedom to be what they are, and therefore I have no dislike for them or. Then what you want to do decides based on your values, but as far as my attitude to the other person is concerned, is not one of aversion. Because that also is possible. It's part of Ishvara Srishti.
So is it true that you become udasin? Like you don't have a general reaction towards anything. It is what it is, that type of.
You don't have reaction. That doesn't mean that you're udasin. You are quite comfortable. You are at peace or poise. Your poise is disturbed when there is dvesha or raga or something. You find yourself accommodative and happy.
So just like right now when I'm in nature, there's no reaction. It's just pure acceptance and it's calmness. And that's how I would be with everything else, not just nature.
Yes.
To understand it at my level.
Samatvam yoga uchyate.
Yeah, samatvam. High bar.
Yeah, that is true. It's a little tall order, but that's okay. You don't judge.
I wish
ourselves.
that really that quantum leap happens, Swamiji.
It doesn't have to be quantum leap. You grow, progressively.
Yes.
And that happens as the mind itself learns to create that distance, as Swamiji explained in the previously, right? When you create more distance with yourself, it happens naturally as a result of that.
As raga
Exactly.
dveshas,
Yeah.
decrease. It happens.
They're like a bimari, you didn't call them and they're there and they won't leave,
Now,
There's no vaccine
what
against it.
happens is that we become more and more sensitive, and therefore even small things become big for us. Formerly it was all in order. Now it's not in order, and then therefore I become more demanding of myself. And therefore I am more disturbed even with little thing. Like when your fabric cloth becomes clean, then every little spot shows up. All these many spots, one more spot doesn't create great effect. So that's okay. We become more and more sensitive and more sometimes demanding of ourselves also. So observe that and become kind to yourself also. Not permissive, but kind.
Yeah. And I was thinking like tapas is a mandatory bar that one has to pass, right? Like we don't generally talk about it as much in Vedanta except for Samadhi Sampatti. And we pass that assuming that people have done that and you're already at the level where you are ready for Shravanam. But I feel like, at least talking about myself, you skip that grade and you have just skipped that primary education and now you're already at like the high school education without going through the primary steps. And that's why this appears to be more difficult than it should.
See, Vedanta says that Swadharma Nishtha, you want to perform your duty right for itself is tapas. Because it involves tapas. To do what is right involves.
But previously people did both, right? Like when they were gruhastas, they did that, and then they did tapas too, in addition, in Vanprastha, before.
Yeah, but you do that in terms of pujas and japa, etc. Yeah, if you want, you can take out some time and go to forest for some time.
Yes, the trail has opened up after 3 years. Yeah.
All right, okay. Saras, good night or good
Okay,
morning,
so-
whatever. Yes.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Yes.
Good night. Om.
Yo. हाँ बराबर. હવે ક્યાં જીવડાવ્યા